Good morning, filmmakers. We asked the question today, would you rather stick forks in your eyes than network with strangers? Did you get excited about going to an event? Like I went to one last night, very excited to go to the Miss Maisel finale. And then me and my husband both were like, we don't know how to talk to people. Let's go. And then you're very disappointed when you're like, why did we leave? Why did we go? What do we not talk to people for? What about online? Do you know how to best use the tools at your disposal? We all know networking is the key to success in this town. You've got to know people. You've got to get yourself out there. So I'm very happy that Husslup founder and CEO H Schuster is going to here with us today to talk all things networking, including building a fantastic online profile, which is something you guys all know. If you follow the working director, I'm harping on you all the time. H, thank you. Hi.
It's great to see everybody, and obviously we love Jen and we love Black Magic Collective, and hopefully all of you guys have seen Husslup. Hopefully you've joined Husslup because Black Magic Collective has exclusive invite code for Husslup as a partner. And I'm super excited to be here. You know, one of the main reasons that we launched this company, that I launched this company, was I was often in the seat of hiring people where I would ask, department heads or showrunners, whoever, like, let's staff diversely. Why don't you bring people in you haven't worked with before? And, I think most people know this town is often the same 6 phone calls to the same 6 people. And, you feel like it's hard to sort of meet new people when you're in the position of hiring, but also for everybody out there looking to connect with collaborators and jobs and all those things, trying to figure out how to be effective in doing that and in making new relationships that will help you grow as a person and as a creative person.
And I love that we get H for this talk because you have sat on both sides of that call.
Have indeed.
Yes. So everybody who's joining us, we are going to take your questions live the entire time. All you have to do is type them in the comment box and we're going to get to all of them, even the really dumb ones. So no dumb questions, right?
Only dumb answers. I'll do my best.
Exactly, which I'll gladly do as well. Well, let's kick it off with let's talk about in-person live networking to start, just because we are back. I used to be the kind of person who I threw events. People thought I was a social butterfly, but I actually had very bad social anxiety. But if I was throwing an event, people talked to me. It was very easy.
You're an introverted, extroverted introvert, or I don't know what the combination is. Yeah.
Well, I think the other side is the problem has gotten worse for a lot of us who've had social anxiety with 3 years of a pandemic where we've stayed in our houses and haven't gone out. And now events are back and you're like, oh crap, it's even worse now. Are there things and techniques that you have when you go out to meet people? Like, are you the kind of person who just walks up and is like, jumps in the conversation? Do you have starter conversations that get you going? How do you handle those situations?
Yeah, it's interesting. We just recently did a mixer with Film Independent, one of our other partners. And it was exciting for me because we had Husslup members and Film Independent members who RSVP'd and were in the room meeting each other. And a lot of the Husslup members, I didn't know them. And when, I first started Husslup, I pretty much knew everybody. And now we've gotten big enough that there are a whole bunch of people I don't know. So I had to go and meet people. I think whether you're an extroverted, introverted, extrovert, or whatever your sort of combination of letters are, it's hard. It's hard to put yourself out there, especially when it's a professional setting. I think in some ways professional settings are harder because you have all the anxiety of like being judged and not being good enough. And how do I convince people that I'm talented and all those things, right? I think it's really helpful when you go into a room, if you maybe set a goal for yourself, like, I just want to talk to 3 people. I want to meet 3 new people, right? A lot of people want to go to events, with a buddy, like the buddy system. I'm like that. I hate walking into a room alone. I'd much rather go with someone. Really interesting. The Film Independent event, we didn't have +1s because we had such high demand for our members to come that we couldn't accommodate +1. So people were walking in alone, and you could tell like it was hard to walk in alone. But what happened was, I think more people talk to new people than they normally do when they have the buddy, right?
Yes, I can see that.
I take my wife a lot of places. My wife is my buddy. And it's really easy to stand in a corner all evening and talk with her because I like talking with her, but that's not really the purpose of networking, right? The other thing I guess I would say about walking into a room cold, especially for people who have a lot of that anxiety, everybody wants to have a drink to break the ice. Just don't drink too much. Like everybody knows what too much is for them, or hopefully you know what too much is for you. Like, you don't want to like wake up the next morning and say, oh, that was a mistake. And a lot of times alcohol is the easiest crutch, right? And then, the last thing I would say is it's always good to start a conversation with somebody new with a question, right? I think, walking up to somebody and saying, hey, I'm H, that's great. But like walking up and saying, hey, how did you find out about this event? Or, hey, are you a filmmaker? Or, hey, I love your jacket. Like, what do you do? Are you in fashion? Like, whatever. I'm making up bad examples. The idea, asking a question is a way to get somebody talking about themselves, and then you can find an entry point. You can find a way to connect with them where they are, as opposed to kind of coming at the conversation. I was at a mixer for a tech event recently, and I was in a group of people. I didn't know any of them. We had come together and we started chatting. It was some folks from banks and some folks from venture funds and me and a few other people that were founders. And this woman walked up and broke into the conversation. Somebody in the group of 4 or 5 people was actually talking. This woman broke into the conversation and said, hi, I'm so and so, and my company is this, and here's what we
Oh my
do,
God.
and what do you guys do, and can you be helpful to my company? And we all kind of went, that sounds cool. Tell us more. And she talked for about 2 minutes and ascertained that no one in our group was of interest to her. And then without even saying, okay, well, nice meeting all of you, blah, blah, she just turned and walked away, right? Now, everybody has their own social anxieties. Some people have a harder time with social settings than others. But I think, too, whatever your capacity is, you want to kind of come into a group of people in a thoughtful way, maybe not interrupt, maybe not talk over people, maybe wait for a break in the conversation, which can be awkward. You're standing there and you're waiting to like say hi to a group of people, but like you want to ingratiate yourself to people you haven't met yet, right? And ask a question rather than just kind of saying, here's who I am, how can you be helpful, gotta go. That's probably not the best way to win friends and influence people.
I always
This is
have
a great book.
I've been teaching my working directors that you really got to approach it as you want to make friends. Because if you go in there like, I need to find someone who will hire me to direct, I need to find someone who will pay for my project. It's always going to come off as desperate, and you're always going to be uncomfortable. You're going to make everybody else uncomfortable. But if you go in looking for that genuine connection, and that's why I said, like, I love the jacket thing actually, because for me, I'm almost always in Hogwarts gear. And so like, you'll be able to ask me about my jacket. That's actually something you could talk about. And now we're going to talk about something I love. And now we're going to be passionate. Now I'm going to be like, wow, we had such a good conversation because we only talked Harry Potter the whole time. Like now that is a genuine connection. I can follow up later about the business stuff.
That's exactly right.
I talk about it here.
I think you never want to approach any interaction as purely transactional, right? I mean, there are some just don't do's. Don't ask for a job. Don't constantly pitch your idea. Don't, immediately ask them to read something or watch something, right? You want to create a personal rapport. I had lots of business lunches when, I was working, at a studio and other places where the entire lunch was just catching up on your family, catching up on your vacation, catching up on whatever. And maybe at the very end of the conversation, I would say to the network executive or whatever, hey, is there anything you're looking for? Is there a need that you have that like I could take back to my team and we could come to you with something you really need, right? And get their kind of mandate. But that was sort of at the end of the call. And I would ask it as a question that was helpful to them, right? It was additive to them as an executive. Like, what are you looking for? What do you need? Not, hey, I have these 12 ideas. Can I pitch each of them to you, right? Because there's really no point in that. You're burning a lot of social capital when you do that. You want to ask people what their need is and then try and bring them what they need. And I think along those lines, I would always suggest that when you're talking to somebody that you think is really a valuable person to you in terms of who they are, what they do, ask for advice rather than asking for a favor, right? It's always great to say, hey, I have this dilemma. I have the script. I'm not sure what to do. What do you think? Or, hey, you've worked a lot in this genre. I'm wondering if this is a good strategy or whatever it is, right? To ask them for their expertise rather than asking them to do something for you.
That is such a great point. And that's what I always tell directors to do is when they send emails out. It's like, ask for the advice. Don't ask if you can shadow. Ask how.
Yeah.
Ask something specific that shows that you believe in their expertise and their. I want to go back though to the being of service, because you talked about how can I fulfill their need, and that is so important. And every time we're thinking about ourselves, there's a million things going on. Oh, what if they don't like me? Blah, blah, blah. All the mind trash goes on. If you walk into a room or send an email or have a phone call going, how can I be of service to you, other person? You're asking them questions now. You're trying to find out about them, and it's not about you anymore. Which
Mhm.
Shaya says, what if the other person doesn't ask me questions? How will they get to know me? And I would like to say, who cares if they get to know you? You get to know them. That's the best way to be networking. If they don't want to get to know you, then it may not be some, like if you're there, say as an executive, you're wanting to look for a script or whatever, and someone isn't asking about you and they're pitching themselves, do you really want to work with that person anyway? And if you're the person who's there to pitch, you ask about them. So I kind of want to really push that home before we moved on from the topic of being of
Yeah, and
service.
I think even more so, I would say, look, when you ask a question and somebody gives you an answer, there's an opportunity for you to say something about yourself, right? If you say, "What do you do?" and somebody says, "I'm a filmmaker," me too. I work on thrillers. What do you do, right? I love romantic comedies. What kind of films do you make? There's a way to add content to the conversation, but have it be conversational, and
I love
have the
that.
person feel like you're both contributing. I think, the other thing I would say just about being of service is I think it's really important to be generous, to not just ask people about, their lives and sort of about themselves, and make it about them, but also to actually help other people. I think I had a thing that I would do where whenever somebody got let go from a position, right? Whenever I knew that they had as they say, ankled in the trades, I would call them right away or email them right away, and I would say, hey, let's have lunch next week. Let's grab a drink next week.
Oh, I
And
love
I
that.
would take them out and I would say, this really sucks. Like, how can I be helpful, right? And people remembered that for a long time. They would, inevitably be in another job. They would be in another role, whether I helped them get there or they got there some other way. And it built a lot of real rapport and real camaraderie, because when you get let go from a position, you suddenly fall off of people's call lists very quickly. And so reaching out and letting people know that you're there for them to be helpful when maybe they're not in a great place in their career, is really valuable too. And I still do that. I still reach out to people when I see that, there's been a lot of that lately with people losing jobs and getting let go, and a lot of movement in our business, contraction in our business. And, letting people know, oh, you are awesome. How can I be helpful is really valuable.
Especially when you think about, like, if I post something on Facebook, for instance, it's like, major news, and everybody suddenly coming out of the woodworks. Congratulations. Do you need to hire me? Like,
Yeah,
gross. Why didn't you come to me when I had nothing going on? Those are the people who are getting those first spots. So
right.
absolutely what you said.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If anybody has more questions about networking, if you have some kind of event you went to and you failed miserably and you want to talk about it, please put that in the comments and we can dive in. We're going to now switch to online networking, because it is so important to know how to reach out outside of your circle, how to present yourself. H, where do you even want to start with online? Do we want
Well,
to
I,
start with
I would
like
love to say
present?
one other thing about in person before we make the
Yes.
move. I think the only thing I would say is we've said, like, don't always be pitching yourself and all that, but I would sort of say the counterintuitive version of that, which is that you're always pitching yourself, you're always presenting yourself. There's never a moment when you're not. So even though you may not be saying, I'm awesome, I did this, I did that, here's my CV. You want to remember that you're making a first impression on people, and that people are assessing who you are. I think Malcolm Gladwell said, the first 7 seconds we've already decided, right? That's not a lot of time. But I think a couple of just fundamental things to think about is talk about your successes, not your failures. Don't blame other people. Be positive, not negative. And the biggest one I have is don't trash talk or gossip. This business, people think gossip is power. They think that leaning in and saying, did you hear about blah, 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 is powerful. It's not. It will destroy opportunities for you. Even if you think in the short term it's been helpful, it's not. this is a business of repeat players. Even the people you don't like, even the people you don't want to work with, they stick around and they wind up in new jobs in new places, sometimes the desk right next to you. And you don't want to be the person they know was trash talking them or spreading a rumor, whether it's true or not, about them. It's a really good policy to not engage in that. Even if the person you're talking to is doing that or is soliciting that, really good policy to not go there.
Agree completely. Okay, so online, I do think that one of the most important things that I teach my directors when they're trying to sort of revamp and get out there is that their entire online presence is spotless. No negative, no, what you're saying there, no negativity on social media, no complaining on social media. It should be business. It should be you're a rock star. It should be you're supportive of other people. Your bios need to be the same across everywhere. Your photos should be the same across everywhere. It should be easy to find you and know who you are. H, you said you have a really good example of a great online profile. Do we want to share that to start? Kick this
Yeah,
off?
sure. I mean, I would sort of just start by saying, I think, that especially for people who are nervous in a real room with real people, online is great for network building and reaching people you wouldn't necessarily meet in person. And it accelerates your network growth. It's super powerful. You can, build connections through connections. You can promote wins and successes. And as Jen said, be positive and put yourself out there. We at Husslup do that for our members. We promote member wins for them and put that out on our channels and say, hey, look what our awesome members are doing. But I think, yeah, your profile really matters and you want to build a really robust, really professional profile. So yeah, I'm happy to share Husslup quickly if you want to do
Get
that.
rid of this banner
So
that's in the
can people see my screen?
Yeah, we got it.
So on Husslup, you'll see your profile appears in a few ways. We have a way for you to appear right on the cover page. This is the landing page of Husslup, where we have a feed with different channels that you can go to look for jobs and look for collaborators. Whoops, and then we also have this ability to see people quickly by just flashing through people. You'll see I'm already connected to these folks, which is why it has a message button, but you can connect to people, which is great. And you can find people quickly and easily. And then, when you talk about a profile and profile building, I'll show you my profile on Husslup. The profile is really a place for you. Sorry, because I'm on the web, it's going a little on the Zoom, it's going a little slowly. Profile is a place for you to really aggregate all your information on Husslup, including your work information and availability information. You can copy a link that you can immediately paste to other places, so you can share it even with people who aren't Husslup members. But you'll see that it's all the things that you would want to present if you were in a meeting or if you were able to send someone a dossier about yourself. You have a bio. You have what kind of professions you have, what kind of projects you engage in, what kind of genres you make. And, some people list a lot more than what I've listed here on Husslup. I would say choose the things that are most relevant to what you do. You want to sort of be in a place where your skills are dialed in and where you're not seen as embellishing or being inaccurate, right? You can do your professional affiliations, your educational background, your locations, your other skills. If you have a background that might be interesting for a role, this can be searched by our production company and studio partners. You'll see you have a lot of information. You can also opt in to tell us your demographic information. You can choose whether that appears on your profile or not. So I've chosen to let that be published on my profile. Some people choose to keep that private in the background just so that we can use anonymized statistical tracking to see how diverse our membership is and how diverse the industry is hiring. Diversity the industry is hiring. Vouchers are a great thing to have, whether you're on LinkedIn, whether you're on Husslup, wherever it is, where people talk about working with you and what your skills are and what your work kind of style is, what your management style is. On Husslup, you can add your credits, so they're all in one place. You can add your creative portfolio, so you can tag things as video, audio, a script, a blog, or a design portfolio. You can upload audio, video, PDF, JPEGs, etc. You'll see I have here a video from Eliza Schlesinger that I uploaded. who's our celebrity ambassador, I should say. That sounded random. And then press information about projects you've worked on, about yourself. If you've had great press opportunities, it could be a link to anything related to that. And so, as you can see, this is a pretty robust way. You can also add your representation. You can add that manually, or you can actually label them in your connections, and they'll appear here. And so it's a great way to sort of aggregate a lot of information about yourself that's really cleanly presented and allows people to come in and discover you, right? So you'll see our discovery tool. You can search it alphabetically. You can search it as most recently joined, etc. And you can scroll through and very quickly get a snapshot with quick headlines. This is a person who's a writer co-EP on Lucifer and Pretty Little Thing, Tiny Pretty Things. And then when you go into a profile, you'll get a lot more information about that person, so that you can then connect with them and hopefully once you connect with them, you'll be able to collaborate or start to network with them. So that's just a quick example of a profile that is extremely specific to our industry, which is obviously what Husslup is trying to do, is to give you guys a place to aggregate all your information and present it in a way that's meaningful to you. But obviously LinkedIn is another tool. A lot of people are using Facebook for networking. What I would say about using Facebook or some of the other more personal social media is it gets a little fuzzy, right? I think this is what you were saying, Jen. When you start to network on Facebook or IG, and maybe you're also talking about what you ate at the restaurant that night, or political positions that are important to you, things like that. You want to just remember, how are you using each platform, right? Husslup is very explicitly a professional platform, as is LinkedIn, where you're kind of talking to other professionals in a professional setting, and what you're putting out there is going to be, highly professional. My IG is a lot of pictures of food and museums, right? And so you might network with me on IG, but that's not really what I'm using it for, right? And
One thing I always tell, like, I just did this with my husband. He wanted to DM somebody in the industry he didn't know. And I was like, well, let's make sure your Instagram is like, let's look at everything there, make sure all looks good. Is your bio up to date? Is your picture up to date? Because this is the first thing. If someone goes to your page to see who you are, everything needs to be perfect. I mean,
yeah, and
there's
I
no such
think
thing as perfect, but as best as you can have it. And I always want to point out Husslup. I haven't seen the full website page yet.
yeah, we just
Or
launched it
the
about
app.
3 weeks ago. It's brand
It's
spanking new.
amazing. I actually was looking at it thinking, I would almost use that as my website because it's
That's
got
the goal,
everything you
is
need
that it could
very
be your
cool.
website. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
And so
Yeah.
that's why you can copy a profile link. You can copy your own profile link, or you can copy someone else's, and you can share that information out. So if you wanted to paste your link into your link tree, if you wanted to paste it into an email to somebody, if you wanted to paste it on Facebook or LinkedIn, you can share your profile to Husslup. And like I said, non-members can come in and look at that one page. We do redact your creative portfolio. They have to join to see a creative portfolio because we respect the sort of IP privacy of our members. But the goal really is to give you guys a tool and privacy settings that make sense for presenting yourself professionally. Yeah.
So now we have a profile, we have our websites clean, we have everything's ready to go. And let's say somebody wants to reach out to, I don't want it to be too big because there's pipe dreams, the big dreams, but something realistic. Like maybe you are about to direct your first network television episode or something, and you want to reach out to uh somebody connected to that, whatever it is. I can't come up with a I need to come up with a good one. I'm sorry. I'm not having one right now.
Yeah, it's all good.
Ever since we had the pandemic, I'm like, my brain is very slow. So, but like, we want to reach out to somebody through social media or via an email and send links. As someone like yourself who has sat on that, the sort of executive side, how would you want someone to approach you in that situation? Obviously, we said, don't ask for jobs, try to ask for advice. Is there other things they can do to try to network that way?
So I think, it's really challenging to do a cold outreach, right? excuse me, I apologize. It's really challenging to do a cold outreach. And I think the thing you don't want is to just say, here's my script, will you read it? And there are a few reasons for that. One, as most of you probably know, a lot of studio and production company executives, agents, managers won't read unsolicited material unless you sign a release. And that's the fastest way to get somebody to block you or to kind of shut you down. Um, it's a lot better to sort of cultivate a relationship with somebody than to just barrage them with a submission or with asks that are not reasonable for somebody you've never met. We have community guidelines on Husslup specifically to help people with this, right? Which is to say, be relevant, be respectful of people's time. Don't waste people's time. I host a podcast called Husslups The Big Break, and it's really talking to people in the industry, writers, producers, directors, execs, about managers, agents, about how they got their start in the industry and how they've grown their career and their advice for people in their professions. There are a number of times that we talk about this in the podcast that we've done. I definitely recommend for somebody who's a writer or director, listen to Sarah Goldfinger's podcast, and for somebody who's looking at sort of ways to break in, Jimmy Fox has some good tips on this too. But I think you get one shot, right? You're only going to get one shot. If you ask somebody to read your script, to look at your reel, whatever it is, that's going to be it, right? So you want to make sure that you have the best possible material, and B, that you're asking them at the right time in the evolution of your relationship with them. So definitely not a cold email, hey, will you read this? Here's the link. Or here, will you watch this? Here's the link, right? And I think, the other piece of it is really to be prepared to take feedback graciously, right? And not everybody is gracious in the way they give you feedback, right? This is the worst thing I've ever seen. Stop emailing me. Like, you might get that, right? Hopefully not. And by the way, their opinion might be wildly wrong. And you're going to have to figure out a way to make that a generative piece of feedback. You're going to have to find a way to take some kind of to make it productive in some way, to take something away from it. I have received network notes where it literally said, "Are you an idiot?"
Oh my God.
That was literally, those were the kinds of notes I would redact those sentences. If people have gotten network notes, they know this was not an uncommon thing. You would redact those before you would share them with your team, because you were like, I'm not going to show my team this, incredibly, unprofessional and painful note. But I think the flip side of that is, if somebody gives you notes and takes the time to watch your thing or read your thing and gives you notes, especially if it's somebody you don't know very well, take the feedback and make it generative. I recently was asked by somebody to watch a cut of something, and I watched it and I spent a lot of time formulating my ideas, and I said, okay, let me give you my thoughts. And then she said, oh, well, actually, we're not taking any more notes on this. And I was like, okay. And then was asked to watch another cut and was like, okay, let me give you my thoughts. And it was like, oh, actually, we're not taking notes on this. And it's like, okay, well, that was a huge waste of my time. And you're also letting me know you don't really value what I think. So that's kind of a lost opportunity, right? I wouldn't suggest making an ask like that if you aren't going to like hold yourself open for what they have to say, right? So those would be two key things I would say on outreach is and the other thing I would say is really avoid spam, right? Even if you've met the person, even if it's a follow-up from a meeting, when you guys finish a meeting, you should always write a series of notes about the meeting, what the person said, what they didn't like, what they did like, whatever it is, and action items for follow-up, right? And try and follow up within 24 hours if you can, right? If they say, send me the deck, send them the deck. If you want to make tweaks in it, stay up all night making the tweaks and then get them the deck, right? Don't say, oh, I'll get to the tweaks over the weekend and send them the deck next week, because the trail has gone cold, right? And so stay top of mind. But that said, don't then send another email 2 days later, have you read the deck yet? and another email 3 days later saying, I haven't heard back from you and I wanted to know if you read my deck, right? People are super busy in this business. It might take them 2 weeks to get back to you. So always follow up with a purpose, right? Always reach out with a purpose. Like, try not to give people the, hey, what's up? Just checking in, DM or email, right? Like follow up because, hey, I have a new show that's going up at a theater in Hollywood and I was really hoping to give you VIP tickets to come for free. Let me know if this night or this night works. That's a reason to message somebody as opposed to kind of a general, email that might be construed as spam, right?
I love it. And I think we're gonna take, there's a lot of questions, so I want to get to them because I know we're out of time. But
Yeah, sure.
I just want to reiterate that I'm gonna go back to even your cold reaching out. If you're cold emailing, you want to be of service to them. Do not ask them to be of service to you. I'm not even that high level. I'm like just like whatever. And I get emails every day. Jen, can I this? Can you do this for me? Like
Yeah.
if I did that for everybody, I wouldn't have time for myself.
Yeah.
So how can you be of service to me? Then people know this. People who've reached out to me to be of service to me, I then feel like I owe them and I help them all the time. So be of service.
And I think
Now,
also know who you're talking to. I can't tell you how many times I would get a cold outreach saying, dear Mr. Scoozer, and my name would be
oh,
misspelled and it would, have the
yeah.
wrong salutation. And it would be like, I know that you currently work at Netflix. Nope, I don't work at Netflix. You just pasted that in and didn't change the location of where the person works, right? Like you have to be really careful. I've done it. I've sent out bulk emails where I'm sending it to 30 people. Go through that email, make sure you have the right information, the right person, the right everything, right? And that you're really being thoughtful about that outreach, even if it's a cold email.
I also, on that note, you got to be personable in your email. I don't
Yeah.
want a dear sirs, which
Yeah.
I get that too all the time. I'm like you haven't even taken 2 seconds to look at my company website to
Yeah.
know there are no sirs here.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna
Yeah.
jump up to the top and let's see what we've missed, and we'll try to go through these. So I missed one somewhere. Oh, here it is. Chris says, how does someone that has a creative mind with zero networking possibilities get a shot? I'm assuming when you say zero networking possibilities, it means because you don't live in Los Angeles, possibly. Maybe you're in a smaller town. There's always networking possibilities, first of all. And I've actually worked with people in smaller towns to become Blackmagic Collective chapter leads to bring film people together.
That's great.
One. But H, let's talk about that. Like, how can people who aren't in a major film city reach out and connect with those that they want to connect with?
Yeah. Hustle up. I mean, that's really true, right? I mean, we aim to be a global network. We're not there yet, although we do have people in Canada and in Australia and in UK and some folks in Israel and then some folks in other corners of the world. I think, online networking is really useful for that. And I think what I would suggest is build your best calling card, whatever it is, wherever you are. If you're a writer, it's easy because you can do that on your own. If you're a filmmaker, go find some local people through Husslup or through Blackmagic Collective and make a short film. Start to make stuff. Like making stuff, in our profession, it doesn't matter, how great your personality is, how great your clothes are, any of that. What matters is like, what are you making? Like, right? Like, are you making something that is of value and that is exciting for buyers, for collaborators, for representation? So make something great, right? Because then you can use that piece of content and you can put it out there in a lot of ways now. You can go to YouTube or Vimeo, you can post it on Husslup, you can do a lot of things to get stuff out there. And then you have the ability when you reach out to people, and they say, well, what have you done? Or who are you? To share a great profile, to share a great piece of content that you have built out. So do the work of building out your great profile, Husslup, LinkedIn, wherever it's going to be, of building out your great content that's going to be your calling card. You can add that to your Husslup profile so it's already there. And then you have a way to really come into the industry. Even if you feel like, oh, I can't buy a plane ticket and travel to LA, there are other ways to share that content and get it out there.
And I would say if you can afford to travel a little bit, go to some really good filmmaker friendly festivals. Like LA has dances with films, and filmmakers, they're friendly with filmmakers. They have a lot of social gatherings. Filmmakers want to talk. It's definitely a way to start to network in a way that's a little easier, more comfortable than, say, going to the Mrs. Maisel finale party. So, which now we're going to get to a higher level festival, because John asks, I'm going to Cannes next year, and I'd love to know what the most effective strategy to reaching out to people online about setting up meetings. I know production companies and agents take up residence in hotel rooms for meetings. Have you done that whole thing? Cannes?
I have been in Cannes, and it's chaos. And there are no restaurant reservations to be had. I think some festivals are tougher to break into than others, right? Festivals that are truly a marketplace, as Cannes tends to be, are truly a marketplace. You have a lot of big players there that are brokering deals about finished films, right? And there are a few festivals that still feel like that. Cannes is probably one of them. Cannes clearly had its share of controversy this year, but a lot of people who are in those hotels, sitting in those bars or in those hotel suites, are there because they are film distributors, they're studio execs, they're agents and managers, they're filmmakers with finished films that are either in the festival or they're hoping to use the festival to sell. So if that is you, John, I think it was John, if that is you, John, then I would say the best thing you can do is try and have somebody who is a rep, even if they're not your rep, even if it's a friend of a friend or a friend's rep, or somebody who knows that market, to help you with maybe some friendly introductions based on the piece of content you're trying to sell or get noticed. Other festivals are not as much of a market, and or if they're a market, they also have a very social component that is more accessible to younger and more first time or more independent filmmakers. I would include Sundance in that, South by Southwest. These are festivals that kind of take over a city or a town. Cannes does too, but in a different way. And there's a lot of opportunity to network in person and meet people, right? And just meet people at an event, at a bar. Find a hotel room that you can afford, go for the weekend. And if you can't afford to buy a badges can be expensive. Try to get some tickets to individual screenings. Try to go to some parties, go to some bars where a lot of people from the festival are hanging out. South by Southwest, we were just there. We did the opening night party for Bottoms, the new film by MGM and Elizabeth Banks's company, Brownstone, who's a partner of ours. And we held the opening night party for Bottoms at their festival premiere, which was a lot of fun. It's a LGBTQ film with Rachel Sennett and a lot of other great folks. And a lot of people came to that party who were associated with the film, but we also opened it up to filmmakers who were there with other LGBTQ projects. And we had a line down the block of people who were trying to get in, which was awesome, but also frustrating, because there's a lot of people who were associated with stuff at the festival who were like, this is awesome. I want to be at this party with other people who are making stuff like me, right? So find those ways to network, even if it's around the fringe of the festival, right? That's how Slam Dance started. Slam Dance started because people who couldn't get into Sundance created Slam Dance as an alternative festival at the same time. They overlap. Now Slam Dance is its own thing, and you apply to get your film into it. But those are the opportunities as an up and coming filmmaker that are great.
I think that, John, you're on the right path about being in advance, trying to connect in advance to set up meetings. I mean, it's kind of the same thing that H was already talking about. Like, don't email with some very specific, exciting, short, concise thing to get their attention. And who knows, they may be like, I can't set up a meeting now, but talk when we get back. So it doesn't hurt to reach out. If you have that thing, you have a film, you have a reason to email.
And
you're providing a service.
Find the connection that is not transactional, right? Sarah Goldfinger talks about this in her podcast that I did with her. She's a writer who was an executive producer on CSI for many years, and now develops and writes for Netflix and other networks. Sarah was a graduate of Hampshire College. And when she came to LA, a lot of her cold emails and her cold calling were about, hey, you're a Hampshire alum. And I just graduated from Hampshire, and I'd love to get your advice. I'd love to hear your story about how you broke into the industry. If you have time for a coffee, I'd love to buy you a coffee, right? Usually they bought her the coffee because she was a nanny and they were a showrunner. But it's that offer. Like, I'd love to buy you a coffee and just hear about your story, right? A lot of people are super patient if you come from a network that they're part of, that they care about. So alumni institutions, whether it's your high school, your college, your graduate school, those are great. Like, go look at what are the films in that festival, who are the filmmakers or the writers or whoever you're trying to connect with, the producers. Do I have an association in common with them? Did we all go through the same college, or did this person grow up in my hometown and go to my high school? Does this person maybe know somebody in my network on Husslup, and I can connect the dots, and I can say to that person, would you make an introduction to this person? He's going to be at Cannes, and I would really like to have coffee with him or buy him a drink on the Croisette, right? Like, you can find ways to find a way that people, it's not a cold email anymore. Now it's an email that is coming from somebody that they might take an interest in.
I love it. Cheyenne, I'm going to get back to your questions a little bit longer. I'm going to try to get through some of these quicker ones. Jen, would you delete things from your Insta that are personal so it's only professional, or does some personal stuff show your character? I'm the person who tells you that it should be 90% professional, 10% or less personal, and the personal should be character building. Absolutely. I don't care that you had tuna for lunch, but I think it's hilarious if you, I don't know, slipped under a car and you decide to show us. I don't like that. We want to see your character. Yes. Like, you'll see a lot of mine is like, it'll be business, business, business. And then some new Harry Potter hat I got something. H, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, my senior in high school daughter would tell you, "Oh, just get a Finsta account." I learned what Finsta was recently because it was actually on Somebody Somewhere on HBO this week, and I was like, "What's a Finsta account?" She's like, "Yeah, exactly." But you can't have more than one Instagram account. You can have more than one Facebook account. Like, if you want an account that's all pictures of your cat, you could do that, right? And share that with friends, right? And just make that the account where you do that, right? But I think if it's an account that that is going to be partly professional, right? You want to try and do things that are reflective of who you are in a positive way, right? I have lots of professional colleagues and friends who follow me on IG, and I post when my kid is going to the prom. I'm like, here's my kid dressed for prom, right? Because most of the people who are on IG with me know me at some level personally, right? I keep my account private. Some people don't, and I actually don't allow anyone to follow me on IG specifically who I don't know. Partly that's because I don't want to get hacked. And partly that's because I put things about my family, and so forth that I would prefer to share only with a subset of people in the world who know me at some level. That doesn't mean everybody on IG following me on IG is my best friend, but I think you have to decide what's right for you in terms of who it is that's following you, how public you make your account, and then what you think is appropriate to share on that account, right? I share professional wins all the time on IG, but I also share more personal stuff. So
I'm going
I
to
think you have to
really
find the
push
balance.
though for those of you watching, you probably need to have a public account that's professional. H has a different
Yep.
story. She's got a very long history. For those of you who are trying to build a career, I need to find you. And I
Yep.
will tell you, it's been so many times, especially actors, DPs. I will go to your Instagram, your Facebook. I will see who you are as a person. I will see what kind of stuff you post before I ever hire you. So keep that in mind. Lilith asks, any advice for reclusive writers? I'm assuming that means you don't go out, you don't want to do anything, but you need to meet people. You want to do a quick touch base on that one, H?
I think there was a time in my life when I was a pretty reclusive writer. I enjoy nothing more than being in a closed room. Maybe my dog might be with me and spending the day writing a script. And 10 hours later, I realize it's dark outside and where have I been? That's great. Like, that is a great strategy to get great content going, right? Like, if you're a writer or for that matter, an animator, whatever it is, like if you want to sit in a room by yourself and create stuff, or, you're a filmmaker and you want to get together with a small group of people and focus just on that, great. But then you have to figure out what you're going to do with that content to be able to make a living with it, right? And assuming that's your goal, that might not be your goal, but it's the part about monetizing what you're doing where you are going to have to find a way to connect with other people. I think for people who are really uncomfortable doing that, online is a really good way to do that. Building a really, really good online profile and really using online to build out a network of people. And then, sometimes what can happen is when you do that and you build out a network of people, you find the one or two people who live in the same city as you that you actually want to meet IRL, as my teenager likes to say. And then you meet them, and then all of a sudden you have a little group of collaborators. And then, those two people might introduce you to a couple more people. Like, I moved from New York to LA. I knew two people in LA pretty much. And I very quickly joined a nonprofit organization called Right Girl, which was a volunteering organization where female writers mentored high-risk young teenage girls through writing. And I met somebody who had become a really good friend of mine through Right Girl. She was also a New Yorker, and she was there, and she was already working as a screenwriter in LA. And then she introduced me to a whole group of people that she knew from AFI. She had gone through AFI, and she had a whole, like, a cohort of friends that were really close that had all gone through AFI together. And then all of a sudden they all became my friends. Right. And I'm 25 years later, still the only non-AFIer in that group, or one of like two non-AFIers at the party, so there are ways to, start with maybe one or two relationships where you don't feel like you're walking into a room cold, and it can plug you into a lot of other people.
H, you just reminded me of something I always tell directors who are trying to network, and I forgot completely, which is volunteering in organizations outside of the film business.
Yep.
Especially if it's an organization that like if you're a director and you want to be working in the studio system, and that certain studio heads or producers or showrunners, whatever, are in a certain organization, volunteer there, meet people. Volunteer at film festivals. That's a great way to meet people and have a reason to talk to people. So volunteering is a very, very good way to do that.
And you're giving back. If you choose a nonprofit, you're giving back. You're contributing. Yeah.
May Wells says, I Google film networking events in my city. That's very smart. Like, I think that if you can start getting out to events again, now the pandemic's over and things are live, it could be scary, but you've got to get out there. Next one is John asked, what about American Film Market in Santa Monica? I don't think it's a networking thing, but we can talk briefly on the best way to handle that. H, if you have a quick answer for them.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was asking about the film market in Santa Monica.
Yeah, like, I guess they're asking, is that a good networking opportunity? I would not call that a network opportunity. That's more business meeting.
No, AFM is really a trade event. A lot of the distribution events are very geared toward people buying and selling, and it's probably not the best use of your time unless you're actually trying to sell something, and selling something at those events really requires a level of representation. So I would say, there are probably other places that are better spent networking, right? Joining an organization like Film Independent, right, is great. Joining an organization, joining obviously Black Magic Collective, which you're already a part of, joining Husslup, like joining things where you can meet people across collaboration and colleague and buyers and sellers, but probably not exclusively like a transactional market.
Yeah. I want to get to the, I just lost it. Every time someone adds a new comment, it moves my comments. Danielle asks, what do we do right now? How do we do any of this right now during the strikes? And I'm just going to say, first and foremost, go picket with your writers. Show your support. Get out there with the sign. You're going to meet so many people. And it's not just writers out there. Producers Guilds out there. SAGs out there. Directors Guilds out there. So that right away you can be helping and networking.
That's right.
I'm not sure what. Go ahead.
No, I think look, this strike has a lot of solidarity across the unions, which is it's different from previous strikes where maybe there was not complete alignment. But I think the Directors Guild is going through its own negotiation. SAG is entering its negotiations. They just did a strike authorization vote. or they're doing one. It's a tough time right now for people coming into this industry because there's a really serious recalibration of how people are going to make a living, and that's good for all of us, right? But it is challenging with the strike that more stuff isn't getting made right now. We have a bit of a slowdown. Partly that's because production companies and well, not really production companies, studios and networks and streamers are in the middle of belt tightening, and so this is sort of coinciding with the strike. So it's a complicated time. I'm sure all of you have read stuff about this in various publications, and there are a lot of takes on it. But my number one thing is there's never been more community in this business than there is right now among creative talent, right? Right now, all the guilds are holding regular information sessions for their membership. Any picket line is open to you if you feel that you want to go and stand up with the WGA. The PGA is organizing those events. SAG is organizing, the SAG-AFTRA is organizing them. I believe the DGA is now organizing some of them. And you can go out there. Listen, I just drive by Netflix every day from my house and give a honk and a wave, and brought folks some sandwiches a couple of weeks ago when it first started. I think it's a great way to meet people. And by the way, you can look at a lot of the posts coming from the picket lines, and they're taking a lot of solace in meeting people and building out their group of friends on the picket line. It's a very, very open and welcoming environment right now. So that's really great. And I think there are a lot of networking events that are still going on despite the strike. I think everyone's trying to be really respectful of not working and not crossing the line, but there's still a lot of people, networking and doing stuff, and you can still make your own stuff. Just to be clear, the strike rules are that you can't be performing work that you're getting paid for by AMPTP, but you can still write a spec script. You can still work with your writing partner to get something going for a pilot. You can still do a lot of things that are getting ready for presenting great work when you're done.
Absolutely.
When the strike is done, I should say.
Yes.
The strike will end eventually, because eventually Netflix and Warner Brothers Discovery, Disco Brothers is going to run out of content on the shelf, right? They've only got so much content on the shelf. So I speculate September, October, there's going to be a huge movement to get this negotiation closed, and we'll be back to work. So,
John says LinkedIn was a social media of choice because it was strictly business. Now it's full of unprofessional content and conduct. What's a viable professional posting only today? Well, obviously we talked about Husslup. Husslup.
we take a lot of care to not allow any negativity or bad stuff in the community. We've really built a community that I think respects those guidelines. LinkedIn's hard, right? At scale, there are just a lot of people using it. And so, not everything that gets posted is professional anymore. And there's a lot of spam that comes into your junk box, right? That, it's like, no, I'm not looking for a $10,000 tax credit on my HVAC, right? You guys all get those phone calls, or is that just me? It's hard. We're really trying to keep our community focused on collaboration and professionalization. So hopefully we have very little of that happening. We're a lot smaller than LinkedIn, and we're focused on a specific industry. But the goal is to keep it a place where you guys want to show up.
I love it. I'm still a fan of unfriending and blocking people who are negative. So you will eventually never see that negativity in your feed. My Facebook feed is lovely.
Yeah. I had a couple of people I had to block on the Facebook during a few elections. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you find out who your people are. It's like, thanks for showing me your true colors. All right, we're saving to our last question because we're
another
literally
reason
over
not
by
to post controversial stuff on your professional profiles, right?
Just don't. Unless you make political documentaries, then post all day. This is gonna be our last question. I know you guys have so many questions. I knew this was gonna be a popular event. Thank you all for attending. We are over by a half hour, so this is the last one. I'm sorry, guys. But this one will kind of wrap us up nicely. So Shia says, I hosted a video event in Vancouver last week. I want big names for next year. How can I authentically connect with these people so they would consider speaking? And the reason I want to say this for last is because it all goes back to you are helping someone else. I had no problem reaching out to H to say, would you come do this and talk about Husslup, this platform you want to speak about? And in turn, now she's helping us by let's talk about networking. It's so easy to, reached out to huge names for podcasts, for Black Magic. They usually say yes. We've had giant showrunners come talk to our women filmmakers for the initiatives because we've just asked, would they come speak to these women? And here's why we think they're amazing. It wasn't a form letter. It was very specifically why they were amazing. H, I'd love your final thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, that I think that's exactly right. Look, there are some folks who command a hefty fee to do appearances, and those are the folks that are going to immediately say, "Talk to my agent." And when they say, "Talk to my agent" or "my manager," you know that you can't afford them if this is a gratis appearance. But I think a lot of folks will want if you explain to them what the impact of their appearance is. Are they helping fellow Canadians? Are they helping fellow cinematographers? Are they helping people who are up and coming in the business like they were at one time? Right? You can find a lot of ways, a lot of hooks to make people excited about helping you with an event and imparting their expertise, right? Their advice to people.
Yep. Yep. I am going to end us with that. I can't believe how amazing, how much great info you've given us. I really appreciate you joining. What is
Yeah,
the best
absolutely. It
way
was fun.
for someone to who wants to make a Husslup profile and be part of that community? What is the best way for them to get a code to join?
Yeah. So is the easiest thing, Jen, for us to give you a code that you can share with all the folks who registered today?
Okay, that'd be great.
Yeah,
And
we're
I
happy
will.
to do that. We'd love to welcome all of you guys to Husslup. And basically you can go in and make your profile, and then at the end of making your profile, it'll ask you for an invite code, 6-digit code, and we're happy to share that code. I'll give you a code right now for anybody who's on the call and wants to write it down. It's 801068. 801068. And then Jen will send it to you so you can send it out to everybody.
Maybe, or maybe I'll only award those who stayed with us. You guys have had great questions. Thank you for joining us for this whole hour. Thank you so much, H, and we will see you all next time.
Awesome.